the 1981 Sugar Bowl in the Superdome in New Orleans. The Georgia Bulldogs, the champions of the Southeastern Conference, were just seconds away from the 1980 National Championship with a victory over Notre Dame. This is the 1981 SEC Football Preview, brought to you by General Motors Parts. Keep that great GM feeling with genuine GM parts. A look now at the teams in the SEC in their order of finish in the 1980 conference race. During this preview of the 1981 season, we'll place particular emphasis on each team's strength, as well as highlighting the individual stars of the Southeastern Conference. For the Georgia Bulldogs, the Sugar Bowl victory was their finest hour, one certainly to be savored. But a new season is at hand. Hi, I'm Bill Flemming, your host for the Southeastern Conference Football Preview of 1981. Behind me, you see the Dogs of the University of Georgia getting ready for the 81 season. It's a long way from here to the Sugar Bowl and the Superdome in New Orleans. But they well know that in order to get back there in 1982, this is where the hard work has to happen. We talked with Coach Vince Dooley before the squad went out to work out today to get his views on how the 81 season is shaping up for not only Georgia, but also the rest of the SEC. Coach, everybody in the country is going to be shooting at you, including those 9 teams in the SEC. How does it feel?
Well, it's a great feeling in one respect, and the reason they're shooting at us is the fact that we won the national championship last year in the Southeastern Conference Championship. But unfortunately, we'll be defending the championship not with the same football team of last year. And I suppose that's the uniqueness of college football, because when you defend the championship in professional football, you defend it with virtually the same football team. When you defend the championship in professional baseball, it's the same baseball team. But in college football, it's not the same team. And as you know, Bill, we lost 22 top seniors off that football team. On the other hand, it's a great privilege to be the defending national champions.
Let's talk a moment about the SEC race itself. It would seem, in talking to every other coach, that each team has improved. Do you look at it that way, too?
I think perhaps everybody's improved with the exception of Georgia. And so that's going to make it difficult for us in light of the fact that we'll be the team to beat because of what happened last year. Alabama will be better. There's no doubt that Florida could be and should be the team to beat in the Southeastern Conference. Auburn will be better under a new coach. Tennessee, I think, has got itself in a position where it can contend. LSU is better. There's so many teams that any one of them can win the championship if all the good things happen to them, which is what happened to us last year.
Coach, thanks very much for joining us, and the best of luck to the Dogs.
Thank you, Bill.
And we'll be underway with our Southeastern Conference Football Preview of 1981 with the runners of the SEC, beginning right here at the University of Georgia, right after this from General Motors Parts.
I checked your car and it needs new brakes. I recommend the kind that chirp like a cricket.
Chirp, Mr. Goodrich?
Right. Genuine GM replacement disc brake pads. When they need replacing, they warn you with a chirp.
How, Mr. Goodrich?
With this built-in wear-sensing signal.
Brakes with a chirp.
That great GM feeling.
Sounds good.
With genuine GM parts.
Oh, Mr. Goodrich, can I get a tune-up?
Sure can.
What's that?
Your written estimate.
Mr. Goodwrench wants you to know in advance just about how much the job will cost. He has the GM training and tools available to do the job right.
Gee, that's reasonable.
Mr. Goodrich knows our customers don't like surprises.
Keep that great GM feeling.
Well, Mr. Goodrich works.
With genuine GM parts.
If the Bulldogs of Georgia repeat as conference champions in 1981, this man will play a major role. Herschel Walker, the finest running back in college football today. In 1980, he became the NCAA's all-time freshman rusher with over 1,600 yards. That broke Tony Dorsett's first-year record at Pittsburgh. Walker finished an amazing third in the Heisman Trophy voting, the highest ever for a freshman. He scored 15 touchdowns in all, And his 283 yards rushing against Vanderbilt was the NCAA's single-game high total of 1980. The 6'2", 215-pound sophomore is well on his way to becoming the NCAA's all-time rusher if he keeps up the pace that he set last season. Number 33 in the Georgia backfield is fullback Ronnie Stewart. His very presence on the field makes Walker a better football player. And despite the loss of 22 seniors, Georgia does return its all-SEC quarterback Buck Ballou, whose many talents include running the football. Later on, we'll see just how talented he also is in the passing department. Coach Paul Bear Bryant is a sure bet to become college football's all-time winningest coach this season. He's just 9 short of breaking the record of 314 victories set by the legendary Amos Alonzo's staff. Ken Coley, number 11, will fight for the starting quarterback at Bama after battling injuries all last year. When he's healthy, he is sharp. Number 10, Walter Lewis, could become Alabama's next great signal caller. He certainly has the potential. He was very impressive as a freshman last fall. It's no secret that Bear Bryant was concerned that his offense didn't generate more yardage. For that reason, look for the Tide to use formations to get its speedy ball carriers loose. In other words, less wishbone in 81. The principal reason could be number 25, Lenny Patrick. When he gets outside, he's gone. Alabama also returns junior running back Jeff Fagan, who wears number 35, a strong and fast running mate to complement Patrick. Together, they could develop into one of the country's finest running tandems. Yes, they love their crimson in Alabama. LSU's head coach Jerry Stovall moves into his second year after a fine 7-4 record last fall. Many people felt the Tigers never could have achieved that kind of success, and one of the reasons they did was Jesse Miles, LSU's leading rusher last year, though he was in action for only half the year. He suffered a broken bone in his foot in LSU's 21-17 win over Auburn at midseason. But he's made a complete recovery from that mishap and is looking forward to a full season in 81. Quarterback Alan Risher adds his strength to the running attack. He wound up as LSU's second leading rusher and added 6 rushing touchdowns to his 9 by passing. So it's Georgia, Alabama, and LSU with strong running games in 1981. Coach Stovall has good reason to embrace Risher and company. They did more than was really expected of them in 80. Now let's take a look at some of the SEC's other top runners. Randy Jenkins, number 12, could become Kentucky's number 1 quarterback in 1981. He's an excellent runner. In fact, he was a starter as a freshman 2 years ago before breaking his ankle. He shared the starting duties with Larry McCrimmon last season. And both of those men will have good opportunities to claim the starting job this year. At Mississippi, Buford McGee returns as a sophomore in eligibility in an injury-plagued career. When he's healthy, you'll have a hard time finding a more determined and devastating runner. Malvin Gibson is Mississippi's other top returning back. He enters his senior year hoping he can have many days like his 190-yard performance against Vanderbilt. Florida's fullback, James Jones, is a converted tight end who led the Gators with over 650 yards and 4 touchdowns last fall. Tailback, Janelle Brown, also has gone the conversion route. He's a former quarterback who's making it big now as a runner. Coach Johnny Majors also is doing some converting at Tennessee, where he hopes the switching of Randall Morris from quarterback to tailback will help Tennessee's inexperienced running game. Wingback Anthony Hancock is a world-class sprinter who took time out from spring ball to participate on Tennessee's track team. He's particularly dangerous on the deep reverses, to say nothing of his pass catching, as we'll see later. Split end Willie Galt is an exciting weapon used mostly for kickoff return, where he finished 5th in the nation last fall with 662 yards, nearly a 28-yard average. He returned 3 of those for touchdowns, including this 92-yarder against Kentucky. Mississippi State's Michael Haddix wound up as the 3rd leading rusher in the SEC behind Georgia's Herschel Walker and Auburn's James Brooks. Haddix could become the Bulldogs' all-time rusher before his career is over. George Wansley, number 32, is a heads-up halfback for the Bulldogs, scoring on the most unusual play. Emory Ballard has a reputation for being an inventive coach, but this is something else, a play that would be hard to diagram. Split end Glenn Young does some split-second thinking, and he's got himself a touchdown. Vanderbilt's Whit Taylor is a junior who can run as well as pass. One of those valuable quarterbacks who can keep the defense honest. He may have some competition at quarterback this fall. Van Heflin, who was the quarterback in '79 and redshirted in '80, is coming back, but he too could play tailback. Marcus Williams was Vanderbilt's second leading rusher in 1980, and Coach George McIntyre has been experimenting with him on defense as a cornerback. However, with James Punkin Williams, the Commodore's best runner in 1980, not returning to school this fall, Marcus could very well remain with the offense. Auburn has an exciting player to run its new offense, Charles Thomas, number 12. His style is more geared to the wishbone attack, and he can really make it work. He's got an outstanding fullback in George Peoples, Auburn's second best rusher a year ago with a 4.5-yard average. Auburn fans are eager to see what the new season will bring. A great challenge is ahead for Auburn's new head coach, Pat Dye, who feels he has the foundation for a very successful '81 season. A pair of All-America candidates should help. Defensive tackle Edmund Nelson on the left, and offensive tackle Keith Euchre enjoy a few free moments on the beautiful Auburn campus with some of the Tigerettes, the recruiting helpers at Auburn. Euchre is 6'5", weighs 262, and could be the best offensive lineman in the conference. Nelson wears number 99. He weighs in at 252 pounds. He'll be making the switch from end to tackle this fall. Linebacker Danny Skutak, number 59, has really grown up fast. As a freshman walk-on, he was 5'10" and 165. Today as a senior, he's 6'2" and 209. Balancing Auburn's linebacking core will be Chris Martin, number 43. He led the tacklers last season with 124. He's a 232-pounder who has 2 more years to play. Coach George McIntyre heads into his 3rd season at Vanderbilt with a feeling of confidence about the Commodore's defensive improvement. His optimism rests mainly on the shoulders of 2 outstanding ends, junior Joe Staley, number 86, an original walk-on who's been nothing short of sensational, and number 87, John Clemens, who will anchor the other defensive side of the line for the Commodores. 2 good reasons why Vanderbilt fans have high hopes for a higher finish in the SEC in 1981. Coach Fran Kersey of Kentucky is the only coach in the country who can lay claim to losing 4 games in the total time of 30 seconds. In 2 of those games, there was no time at all remaining on the clock. So understandably, he hopes the defense will prevent that from happening again. Number 42 linebacker Scott Schroeder will be a major cog in that defense this fall. He's not very big by linebacker standards, 5'10" and 199, but he is smart, a straight-A student. Number 2, Venus Mukes, is an outstanding defensive back who will get an early test this year. Kentucky faces Alabama in the 2nd game of the season. Andy Moles, number 18, will accompany Mukes in the secondary. He suffered a broken leg last season against Oklahoma, but he's back healthy and strong again, which is a cheering note for the Wildcat followers. Coach Emory Bellard of Mississippi State enters his 3rd season with the Bulldogs after a 9-2 record a year ago and a 2nd-place tie with Alabama in the SEC race. Number 91, defensive end Billy Jackson, is headed for a great career. In State's 6-3 upset over Alabama, he was named National Defensive Player of the Week, and that's quite an honor for a freshman. Jackson and 2 others are potential defensive All-Americans. Number 99, Johnny Cooks, an All-SEC end, who just loves to hit. And number 79, Glenn Collins, who likes to greet opposing backs with what he calls enthusiasm. Collins, Jackson, and Cooks form a destructive trio that may very well carry the Bulldogs to the top in 1981. Alabama's All-America linebacker Thomas Boyd is another reason the Crimson Tide will be tough to run on this fall. He was Bama's top tackler last season, an exceptional athlete with great quickness and speed. In fact, there are few linebackers in the country who can compare with him. Boyd is complimented up front, where all-conference middle guard Warren Lyles, number 91, helps the Tide to plug up any holes in the middle. He was particularly impressive in Alabama's 30-2 victory over Baylor in last January's Cotton Bowl. Boyd and Lyles have provided the Crimson Tide a devastating defensive interior. All-America strong safety number 15, Tommy Wilcox, adds still another dimension to Alabama's tough defense. He can cover so much ground so quickly that opposing passers have a hard time keeping the ball away from him. Cornerback Jeremiah Castile, number 19, is equally strong. In fact, Castile and Wilcox are to the Alabama secondary what Boyd and Lyles are to the troops up front. LSU's Ramsey Dardar, number 98, is one of the best defensive tackles in the league. He was one of the Tigers' most pleasant surprises last fall. In fact, Dardar and his defensive teammates set some sort of a record in 1980 when they limited Ole Miss to just 6 plays in the entire fourth quarter of play. They caused turnovers that resulted in limiting the Rebels to only 59 seconds of offense, and Ramsey Dardar was one of the reasons. But Mississippi's defense had its moments. Melvin Brown, number 21, was one of the few players who actually stopped Georgia's Herschel Walker for a loss last year. Brown developed into a top defensive player for the Rebs, following conversion from a running back spot the previous spring. James Otis, number 84, is a solid defensive end who also showed he could be a top-notch receiver. Coach Sloan is placing a great deal of emphasis on defense. He's moved fullback Kenny Hooper to linebacker, and he's made other adjustments. James Otis figures very prominently in those defensive strengthenings. At Georgia, defensive coach Irk Russell has produced some great ones. One of those is number 87 defensive tackle Jimmy Payne. And another is All-SEC defensive guard number 61 Eddie Weaver, a solid 270-pound hitter. Florida's Robin Fisher, number 66, is another outstanding nose guard. He's exceptionally quick and exceptionally strong. He can bench press over 400 pounds. Fisher is one of the reasons Coach Charlie Pell's Florida defense must be reckoned with this fall. Tennessee's Mike Cofer, number 93, is a converted defensive end who's been moved to linebacker. He's back 100% now following knee surgery. And number 68 is middle guard Leonard Jackson, who can really cause problems for the offense. He was only a freshman last fall, part of the rebuilding program, which will be gaining momentum in '81. Coach Johnny Majors enters his 5th year at Tennessee, trying to mold the Volunteers back into national prominence. And a strong passing attack will be the key to how successful he is. We've already seen number 28 Anthony Hancock in action as a runner. Here's why he was the Vols' leading receiver. In fact, quarterback Steve Alatorre will have 3 world-class speedsters to aim for. Another is Willie Gault, number 28. A tremendous weapon for the Volunteers this season. And still another wide receiver with great speed is Mike Miller. He's the 3rd rocket on Tennessee's launching pad. Miller possesses the same outstanding breakaway speed that Hancock and Gault have exhibited for the Volunteers. In fact, you might even hear a few sonic booms in the vicinity of Knoxville this fall. At Mississippi, Coach Steve Sloan knows the value of the forward pass. He was an Alabama quarterback for 3 years and an All-America in 1965. His quarterback at Ole Miss is John Forcade, one of the nation's finest all-around football players. He led the SEC in 7 offensive categories last fall. Here he hits number 85, Geno English, his wide receiver, with a perfectly indefensible TD pass. Flanker Breck Tyler is the elastic man target for Forcade. Watch this catch coming up. In all, Tyler caught 33 passes last fall to lead the team. Tyler and English provide Coach Sloan a double threat in the passing game. One thing about Tyler, when the goal line's in sight, he'll do almost anything at all to get over it. That effort does deserve some applause and a pretty smile. At Florida, Coach Charlie Pell made one of the most amazing turnarounds ever last season. His first Gator squad was 0-10-1 in '79, and last fall it was 8-4. He's got good depth at quarterback, including the return of Bob Hugo, number 12. Hugo got Florida rolling last fall, but suffered a broken leg in the 4th game against LSU. Wayne Peace, number 15, stepped in for the injured Hugo as a freshman, and he performed more like a veteran. Not only will Hugo and Peace be battling for the starting role, but Pell feels an outstanding freshman prospect, Roger Seabold, may become the best of all the quarterbacks. Wide receiver Tyrone Young wears number 10, and he's one of those kind of players you simply cannot afford the least bit of room. If you do, look out, because it'll be a quick 6 points. All-SEC tight end Chris Faulkner gives Florida an experienced player for the short game, and that's why there are a lot of happy Gators in Gainesville. Vanderbilt's split end, Wayman Buggs, wears number 8. He's one of the SEC's most exciting players. As a junior last fall, he led the Commodores with 37 receptions, finishing 2nd in the SEC. He certainly will be Vandy's big play man in 1981. Kentucky also has a number 8 to throw to. He's wide receiver Greg Wimberly, out of the same physical mold as former USC star Kevin the Bug Williams. His quickness will give Kentucky a passing attack that has something extra this year. Number 86, split end Alan Watson, is another key target in Kentucky's aerial plans. He not only is a threat through the air, but he also is an excellent runner. Earlier, we watched LSU quarterback Alan Risher as a runner. Now he's in action as a passer. Throwing here to tight end Malcolm Scott. Scott is a sure-handed receiver with excellent blocking techniques. Also look for flanker Orlando McDaniel to play a prominent receiving role for LSU. This is the scoreboard at the end of one of the most memorable games in the SEC in 1980. Mississippi State 6, Alabama 3, and riding the crest of victory, freshman quarterback John Bond, number 13. He'll never forget that day. In all, he passed for over 1,500 yards in 1980. Junior tight end Jerry Price is on the receiving end here. Bond can also utilize number 26, halfback Michael Haddix, as a passing threat coming out of the Bulldog backfield. John Bond certainly has the credentials for potential stardom at Mississippi State. Auburn's quarterback Charles Thomas may not have the opportunity to throw the bomb from the wishbone very often. That doesn't mean he can't unload the long one. He threw for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns last year, indicating the kind of an arm he possesses. Alabama has a great plus going into the 81 season with the senior tight end, number 87, Bart Crowd. He led the Tide receivers with 16 catches, 218 yards, and 2 touchdowns a year ago. Jesse Bendross started every game as a freshman at Alabama, and that in itself is quite an accomplishment. Bear Bryant took advantage of Jesse's outstanding speed. And when combined with Bart Crowd, it's obvious the Tide will have a solid passing game this fall. Georgia's split end, Lindsey Scott, played a key role in the greatest play of the 1980 season. With 1:35 left to go in the Florida game, Georgia was trailing 21-20. On third down, quarterback Buck Bellew was frantic, looking for somebody to throw to. He found Lindsey Scott in the open, and all of a sudden, Lindsey Scott was headed toward the goal line. Georgia pulled off the miracle play of the season and came away with a 26-21 victory. This led to the SEC title and the eventual national championship. We'll be back after we catch our breath, but after this from General Motors Park.
My alternator light won't go out.
Uh-oh.
What do you think it is, Mr. Goodwrench?
Well, let's take a look.
Mr. Goodwrench has the right GM equipment available to work on your General Motors car. Thousands of dollars worth. But he also knows the value of a well-placed thumb.
What's the problem? Just a stretch belt. I can replace it while you wait.
That's great GM feeling.
Where Mr. Goodwrench works.
With genuine GM parts.
Mr. Goodwrench, can I get an oil change, filter, and lube job in a hurry?
Sure. I'll do it while you wait.
Mr. Goodwrench knows you don't have time to waste, so he can offer while you wait service on many popular jobs. And he has the special GM tools, GM training, and genuine GM parts available to back it up.
All done? That was fast.
Well, time is money, Sam.
Keep that great GM feeling.
Where Mr. Goodwrench works.
With genuine GM parts.
In 1980, the Southeastern Conference produced college football's second straight national championship team. 4 SEC teams were invited to bowl games, Georgia beating Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. Mississippi State got its first bowl bid since 1974, representing the conference in the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas. Alabama triumphed over Baylor in the Cotton Bowl. And Florida scored a resounding victory over Maryland, 35-20, in the Tangerine Bowl. Yes, the Southeastern Conference is famous for exciting football in an always colorful atmosphere. This is Bill Flemming inviting you to be part of it in 1981.